Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
I will agree.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon, and here are the Ruckettes. Kansas City Star editorial writer Yael Abahaka, Gwen Grant, president and CEO of the Kansas City Urban League, media and communications consultant Mary O'Halloran, and joining us this week, Johnson County civic leader and Kansas City Star columnist Steve Rose. Yielding to the state Supreme Court's mandate, the Kansas legislature passes a bill that adds $126 million to the education budget and presumably helps mitigate disparities between wealthy and poorer school districts. Democrats and others who have called for this must be happy, right, Yael?
No. I mean, it's one of these bills that was passed by the dimmest bulbs in the legislature at the end of the session, at the 12th hour, maybe even 3 a.m., which basically says to Johnson County, let's get it local real quickly, it says to Johnson County, hey, we're going to not give as much money to you guys as we maybe used to, but you get to raise your taxes and help your kids out. And so Johnson County will go off and do that. Meanwhile, the rest of Kansas is screwed. Now they're finding out more and more that actually, as you look forward on this bill, it's not going to do as much as even the proponent said for schools. And one of the things that really is the teacher tenure or teacher protection clause of it that was brought up at the very last minute, as critics point out accurately, never discussed in a committee, never brought up. Like, well, let's talk about the pros and cons of this. I mean, it's actually one of those things that is kind of interesting to talk about, and they rammed it through at the last minute because of all the conservative forces.
Steve, I thought Johnson County had wanted for years the authority to raise its taxes for education.
Yeah, I don't see this the same way. I think this is a big victory for Johnson County schools. The superintendents have been yelling for years that they wanted local control. They needed more money for the local districts. And nobody thought the legislature was going to come out with this kind of a result. So I think you've got to put that out there as something that was a real positive for Johnson County schools. The people get to pay for it themselves, but this is money. This is the only money that we can raise that doesn't go out to the rest of the state.
Mary, isn't the legislature doing what the state Supreme Court told it to do?
Well, the legislature didn't do it in the spirit that's the state Supreme Court.
Well, whether it did in the spirit or not, didn't it pass the legislation?
What it did was allow Johnson County and others to raise a small amount of property tax without a vote
and
for the first year.
The funding
without a
for
vote of people for the first year. No, not necessarily. Wichita loses money. Why, Mike? Because they did really sneaky thing. And Yael will probably be writing about it for the next month or two. You can stay tuned. They took the money some of the money from the state fund was built up because they cut the money going to at-risk students that need extra help. Students like a lot of the students in Wyandotte County that speak another language, stripped of that. So they paid for the increases for some districts by cutting others. In addition to that, and as Yael said, all of this was done in the middle of the night. And not just the middle of the night, but over 4 or 5 days with not one public hearing, not one opportunity.
They were pressed for time. They got the Supreme Court decision fairly recently. They had to move on.
No legislature.
Like I had it a month ago. They could have had public hearings.
Well, it's difficult to get that kind of legislation crafted in a short period of time.
On the Johnson County thing, did you notice?
We're going to have to move on here. Okay. With guns blazing, figuratively speaking, of course, Kansas legislators okayed a measure that is gaining national attention. It strips local jurisdictions, cities and counties, of authority to regulate guns and nullifies any regulations now in existence. This sets the stage for open carry of firearms, a position espoused by the National Rifle Association. But is this good law, Yael?
Me again?
Yes, if you read the notes I sent you about the show, you would have noted that.
Yes, I did. No, it's not good. Just like the education thing.
What's the point?
Oh, what's all the point of doing this? No, it's one of the things that really is offensive about all this kind of stuff is, of course, the Kansas legislature saying, we don't want the feds telling us what to do. By the way, we're going to tell all the cities what to do. The whole local control type thing. And there are cities, I mean, urban areas are different than rural areas, and of course, rural areas control to a degree the state legislature, and they want to have, open carry and people carrying guns everywhere. And they tried to do it, last year a little bit, where the public, and they've said, hey, the public buildings are still off limits. Well, no, they won't be in a few years unless the public spends a lot of money trying to
Absolutely.
keep guns out.
Just to explain, open carry means you can openly carry firearms.
You're like a police officer.
And most
You're
states,
on your side.
most
Loaded.
states have that, but most states give the local authorities the ability to regulate.
Of course.
And this is an issue that used to get me all worked up. But I honestly, when you look at the statistics, the truth of the matter is that when you do have open carry, the violence and the homicides and all the rest of it do not go up. As a matter of fact, there's some indications that it goes down. I wouldn't vote for something like this, but I can see why people are in favor of it, and I can see why it should not be a major issue
Steve,
facing
before the
the state.
show, you said you're trying to get more conservative. I
No,
wish
I'm
you
not.
would get more conservative on this one. You pointed out the local control question. Let's just take Prairie Village. $500,000 is no small amount. Estimates for Johnson County alone to bulk up and get all their security measures because the state mandated it, $5 million.
Gwen, you think by
Nothing
looking at
conservative
Kansas, you're
about it.
seeing the future of Missouri?
Well, our legislature really looks a lot like the Kansas legislature. Anything can happen. I mean, they want to keep people, they don't want sheriffs or anybody to enforce the law. So, this is crazy.
But
I mean, having the right, open carry, Wild Wild West is
that
what...
That right exists in Missouri and in most states,
I know,
but there
well,
is
the
local control.
local control
Yeah.
to regulate that. I mean,
But-
when you remove that, it creates a
But does
serious
anyone
problem.
think we're going to wander around Johnson County and see people carrying
Yes.
firearms openly?
I have yet
Yes.
to see, has anybody here yet seen anybody
And-
walking around?
and
I haven't.
We had the same arguments about concealed carry a few years ago, how that was
Right.
going to be the cause of blood running in the streets of
Well,
the metro
Mike, there was
area.
the guy
and
who
it
shot
hasn't
his
happened.
wife at the
At
Long
the
Branch.
Well, there are examples, but I mean, it's
okay,
not
well,
like, you can find an
example.
example
Oh,
of,
you're
find
gonna-
an
if you're gonna
example
start
of
putting
anything.
examples out there.
One
There you
example
go.
doesn't make it the law,
Well,
doesn't
that's
make
for
it the
sure.
rule.
We'll have
All
to
right,
wait
one
and see.
employee of the Johnson County Sheriff's Office earned $218,000 from 2010 to 2012, about $70,000 a year, about what Ruckus panelists are paid for a year. Pretty good salary, but the $218,000 was above and beyond his regular paycheck. That was overtime during a 3-year period. 3 others got more than $100,000, and 9 others got more than $80,000 in overtime. These startling numbers are contained in Steve's Sunday column that begins, "You don't have to live in Johnson County to be shocked over this." Well, I suspect that is certainly true, but I bet the greatest shock was to the taxpayers who foot the bill in Johnson County.
When you stop and think that the master deputy sheriff makes $70,000 a year in salary, then he makes another $70,000 a year in overtime, then you figure out that the last 3 years that he worked, those kinds of hours, make up the source of his retirement, which is coming up next year. The $70,000 a year master deputy sheriff is now going to make $128,000 a year for the rest of his life as his pension. And I think that the taxpayers should be outraged, and I think the system needs to be changed so that retirement pay does not get equated in there when you're figuring out what somebody's retirement benefits are.
What kind of reaction did you get to the column it ran in last Sunday's Star? I bet you were inundated with people's responses.
People were, across the board, were mortified. I mean, they found it difficult to believe. I found it difficult to believe when I first read the audit. I thought there must be something wrong. When I talked to the sheriff about it, I thought he would be very defensive. He wasn't. He said, "Oh, well, this is something that we need."
Well,
That's the amazing part. Friend Frank Denning, went on KMBZ radio and defended the thing. And the point that you made about the retirement income being factored in is a key one, because a lot of places do not allow that, specifically because you are basically boosting your pay artificially. And so Johnson County needs to change that, although it's not Johnson County, it's probably Capers in that regard.
Well, they have a separate retirement.
Okay,
plan, but you're right.
They ought to change that. But the second thing is your point, and the point that's made in the piece about how the 9/11 operators, the emergency operators, were sworn people. And Frank said, oh, that's good because I got sworn in there, and then they're ready to go out. I mean, his argument made absolutely no sense. It kind of sounded like, well, they're sworn, and if there's an emergency, they can go out and handle it. Well, like, then who's handling the calls? I mean, it made no sense.
And Gwen, every
It
other
doesn't make sense.
jurisdiction in Johnson County and Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri all use civilian people to answer
Absolutely.
the
Right.
calls that
it's
come in
just
and not
fine.
uniformed deputies.
And it's just fine. It really is. I mean, this is totally ridiculous, unbelievable. I mean, that money could be used to create additional jobs. If you have to have all that overtime, hire some additional people so that you can create jobs in the
Yes.
in
Who
that
can
Guess what,
department.
Gwen? Well, I think Frank Denning is a darn good sheriff, and this this little battle that's excuse me brewing comes right before the election for the Johnson County Commission really starts to heat up, and picking a fight with the sheriff is one way to look like you're fiscally sound. Unless you get in there and talk about all the details of managing jails and emergencies and regular patrol work and all the things that have to go on under the sheriff's obligations, he gave up 24 positions. If he had one more position, he could cut this guy's
It sounds
time in
like
half.
you're suggesting that the incumbent chairman of the Johnson County Commission, Ed Eilert, is doing
Well, I
this for
think
political reasons.
Ed and Steve are doing it together.
Ed
Like-
and Steve, are you working in
I
concert
just
with
read
Ed
the
Eilert?
internal audit, and that's what.
And did you read the part of the audit, Steve, that says that he should have 60 more people in order to cut down on overtime, and they're not even, they've cut him 24?
Well, he has
That's
control.
the question,
He has
and Gwen
control.
just pointed it
He
out.
has control over how the budget is spent, not how much the budget is.
He does
so he
have
could
control
allocate
over
some of that overtime, perhaps,
he could.
and hire.
But I want to
full-time
say,
employees.
I think Frank has been a good sheriff
He has
overall.
been a good
I don't
sheriff.
want to leave here with people thinking that Frank Denning was a bad sheriff.
But your
because
piece
I
leaves
think-
that impression.
Well, he's
Well,
made some,
in
these
this
are
particular
mistakes.
thing, yeah.
These are mistakes that are being made. That doesn't mean he's perfect, but
He's horrible at managing the resources.
I
That's
wouldn't
his
say
job.
horrible. It's just
Well, I mean, this
it's
is
not
really
true.
a poor judgment
If the
call on his part.
GOP decides to hold its 2016 convention in Kansas City, the implications sound like popular TV programs. Republicans will give the city an extreme makeover, and when party elders show up, it will be like a political version of the Antiques Roadshow. Last weekend, the Star outlined the pros and cons of hosting a political convention. Let's take a look at both. Start with the positives. What's the best thing that will happen to Kansas City, Mary, if the GOP comes here?
Well, I think the best thing will happen is that it will prove Dave Helling wrong. I mean, Dave Helling wrote a piece in the Kansas City Star that was really, I think, unlike what the reporters in other cities that are vying that are now. Two cities have been cut, and we're in competition with, as everyone knows, with Denver and Las Vegas and Cincinnati.
Denver, Dallas, Las
Dallas.
Vegas, Cincinnati, and Cleveland.
And Dallas. So, and what do we do? I'm not expecting reporters to be cheerleaders always for this process, but I'll tell you what, we have tremendous assets that this group is looking at, and the mayor is very happy right now that we've made one of the cuts.
But question, what is the biggest benefit to Kansas
Oh, yeah.
City
The biggest
if the convention comes
the
here?
biggest benefit is the obvious, that we get a kind of national attention from the thousands of media people that will be here for however long they're here, 45,000 people total.
Exposure, visibility.
More than that, it's being chosen, first of all. Secondly, we get to show off our assets. Sprint Center is such an asset, and more than any other city has, because guess what? Other cities use their main arena for the NBA, and we don't have a team, and so we can set it aside for a week.
Do you see some problems if the GOP comes to town?
Yes, and Dave Helling's article
I thought he outlined both,
laid out the problems and the pros. And in fact, one of the problems was, hey, we're going to have this big security zone. Like, well, that looks like a pretty big security zone. City Hall's even thinking about not being at City Hall. I think that would be a concern to people. That would be an effect on people.
And the businesses within that security zone.
Yeah, and the business. So actually, the article was fine. It outlined pros and cons. And yes, the big pro is, of course, two. One is getting people to see Kansas City. That is, we are this hidden gem, and that is absolutely true to a degree. We want people to see Kansas City. They might come here. They might spend some money here. They might come back here. That's all great. But to have this thought that, well, we're just going to have to be cheerleaders for it is ridiculous.
Gwen?
Yeah, I think the article pointed out some things that I was not aware of in terms of some of the inconveniences that might occur if the convention comes. But I think that overall, it's really great for Kansas City if we get it. I think the long-term impact of having the convention here on the economy, on our national and global visibility, I think Mary's absolutely right that it will give the nation and the world an opportunity to see what Kansas City is really like, because people have these, these perceptions of Cowtown and, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz.
Well, every generation we have to do it over again.
Well, they can't turn us down because we have the most convenient airport in the world.
Well,
There you go.
Helen said that we're going to have to set aside 70 blocks or something. Guess what? If his ridiculous discussion of security in that article comes true, the Kansas City Star would be part of it.
It's not his discussion. He got it
It
from
seems
the
to me he
people who are
quoted
doing
it. Didn't he have, wasn't that article? Wasn't the article replete with quotes from people who said certain things?
Mary, learn
No,
to
there
read.
is no reason why we can't do security just
Of
as
course
well.
he will. He
as
didn't say we
Denver
couldn't.
or anybody
Steve,
else.
do you remember the 1976 convention that
I
was
am
here?
old enough to remember the 76
And remember
convention.
what it did for Kansas City's image. I think it did help establish Kansas City as a major city.
Dave wrote in his article it's comparable to a Super Bowl, but it's bigger than a Super Bowl, actually. I mean, I think it's probably the single biggest image that you can get, and we ought to be thrilled if we get this.
Yeah.
How likely do you think it is? And I know no one knows at this point. There's going to be some announcement over the next day or two about how the area is going to go after this convention, what the logistics are. But
Well, I think
what's
it's
your
going to be.
thought?
I don't think we're at the top of the list because of the hotel problem. I like a lot of people will have to stay outside the area. That's our single biggest issue, I think, is our lack of hotel space. But, it doesn't mean we're out of the running, and we're obviously finalists, so we'll cross our fingers.
Don't you think we need a big hotel, Steve? About 1,000 beds would do it?
Well, I happen to think that a 1,000-bed hotel would help.
Well, one thing that would help would be peace on the Country Club Plaza, and there was peace last weekend, according to the popular and controversial website Tony's Kansas City. TKC contends it was only peaceful because of the continuing heightened and costly presence of police. Parents and politicos are still seeking answers to the problems created when large groups of young people gather on the plaza, disrupting the usual calm, and on occasion the gatherings erupt into violence. Steve Rose offers a solution in one of his recent columns, a 9 p.m. curfew for teens year-round. Do you buy into that solution, Gwen?
Absolutely not. No, totally ridiculous.
Why?
No,
Why is it so
you're going to tell teenagers that they can't be in any entertainment district after 9 o'clock.
Well,
See,
the stores
it's
are
totally
closed.
ridiculous. It's entertainment. They're not just there.
Well, they're
there's
not there to
movies,
drink.
There's restaurants. Kids don't eat, and they don't have to drink alcohol on the plaza. They serve all types of beverages on the plaza. They serve food on the plaza.
Movies.
There's movies on the plaza. There's all types of entertainment that teenagers between the ages of 16 to 18 can partake in. So it's ridiculous to say that they have to go home or go somewhere else at 9 p.m. This is a bigger problem than what the curfew law. And I agree with Chief Forte that we don't need any more changes in the curfew law. The police need to enforce the laws. They need to enforce them evenly, irrespective of race, gender, ethnicity, when anyone is gathering on the plaza and acting out.
Let me,
now, just one other
okay.
thing about this is, this is more about their socioeconomic issues that are part of the problem. The bad parenting is part of the problem. Not enough other activities for young people is a part of the problem. It's more complex, more comprehensive than just let's change the curfew. We had them out there in the wintertime. They're going to, and it's going to happen again because you know what? They're going to gather because of social media and all other factors. It's going to happen. So you just got to manage the crowd when it gets there.
Steve, let me show you something and show the audience something that you wrote in your column. It says, can I, a white guy from Johnson County, comment on the mobs on the Country Club Plaza without sounding racist? No, probably not. Why do you think that?
I think that because the issues on the plaza are racial issues, and anything that is said about it is taken as a racist comment. And I just think that's just the way things are perceived. I mean, people, if I say to you that I would say the exact same things if hundreds of white kids were down there causing trouble, people would dismiss that and say, oh, he probably doesn't mean that. He's just saying that. But I really mean that. I sincerely mean that. I don't think the kids belong in throngs on the plaza at night. I just don't think that there's a place for them there. I don't see any reason for them to be there. And if you were a store owner down there or a restaurant owner or anything else, you would be very concerned.
Well, and you offered a suggestion for another solution beyond the 9 p.m. year-round curfew. You say make the plaza private property, as happened at Ward Parkway. Well, let him explain it before you
What
react
I want to
it.
explain is that when you have Ward Parkway had a similar kind of situation. It's privately owned. They had enforced their own curfews and their own rules, their own regulations, and the issues went away. They stopped having problems.
Yeah. Steve, I mean,
The issue on the
seriously.
plaza is the way that it's constructed. It's probably the largest center in the world that's got public sidewalks and public streets. So legally, everybody has a right to be there. And on those
That
streets.
is one of the great things about the plaza. This is, as you point out in the article, the center of our town. This is the place that people think of as the center. And if we start to take action to eliminate a certain group of people from the public streets, and then we're going to go try to make them private so we can control those people, that just
Everyone
that
is welcome.
rings of the 1880s, let alone the
Everyone is
19th.
welcome to be at the plaza, Mary. There's
should
no
be.
one.
They
There's
should
no
be.
one that would defy the right for anybody to be on the plaza.
Making it a
All I'm
private
talking
space
about is
would.
one issue, and that is throngs of kids that are out of control. They do not belong on the plaza.
We have to work harder at making the public squares safe and
Let's get Gail
available
in
to
here.
everybody.
My mom is moving now, so she's sending me all these different clippings I wrote. 1988, kind of the same, I wrote almost the same piece you did. 1988, throngs were gathering on the plaza. They were black kids. And it was almost like, well, gee, do I comment on this as a white guy? Well, yeah, I have. And in fact, I've commented on it for like 15 years because it's not a white guy, black guy issue or gal. It's an issue of safety and security of the premier asset of Kansas City, the plaza. And I think Gwen's right. I mean, a curfew is not going to, quote, solve the problem. And I think, yes, you have to enforce the law. You have to enforce it evenly. Forte has had figures out that show that they are doing it. I mean, actually, black kids are being arrested or chosen or whatever. I mean, they're not saying, oh, go ahead, we'll go look for the white kids. I mean, I think it is being done correctly. And finally, you are correct that the throngs of kids are the ones that we all worry about. But I'm not going to let the throngs of kids prevent me from going down the plaza.
All right, and now it is time for Roast and Toast, where the Rockettes cheer or jeer people and events in the news. First up this week is Steve.
Well, I'm going to kind of toast the KCI advisory board that decided not to make a recommendation on KCI. And I think the reason is because they knew that the mayor of the city and the airport officials were very much in favor of a single terminal concept. And I don't think that they felt that they could come up with that recommendation, so they punted. I understand it, and I think it was a fair conclusion.
I'm going to toast Patty Manser, Dr. Amy Hartsfield, and Melissa Robinson on their victory to serve on the Kansas City Public Schools board, school board. Especially a shout out to Melissa and Amy, who won in spite of having the STAR and the Teachers Union endorsements.
Well, I'm going to toast the state Supreme Court of the state of Kansas. This is the current state policy of the state with regard to teachers and their rights. The state has a duty to protect competent and worthy instructors against unjust dismissal, political, religious, or personal, and secure for them teaching conditions which will encourage their growth in the full practice of their profession, unharried by constant pressure and fear. 1957, Million versus Board of Education. That's what the policy currently is. Brownback and his followers stripped that from teachers unconscionably this weekend.
Well, this is a preliminary toast to the Missouri Ethics Commission and anybody else who would investigate the absurd, outlandish, inane accusations that were made by some unnamed forces in the Hickman Mills and Kansas City school board races. They were exactly the kind of, just cowardly things that were done by people to try to influence a race. they didn't work, actually, in the Hickman Mills race, which was great news for the Hickman Mills community. But it also, we need to have a resolution. Who did it? Who paid for it? Where'd they get the money?
Final question for you before
Yes,
my
sir.
toast. How many people voted in Kansas City, Missouri on Tuesday?
Not enough.
How many? 10,000?
I don't know.
Did all
You-
5 ballot issues pass?
They all passed, baby.
Okay.
Yes, that's good.
And-
All endorsed by the Star. I just wanted to
Finally,
point out.
here's a toast to the Truman Good Neighbor Award Foundation for attracting another big name recipient for the annual luncheon on May the 14th. The honoree is Leon Panetta, a former congressman, defense secretary, CIA director, and White House chief of staff. However, his major achievement is being played by iconic actor James Gandolfini in the movie Zero Dark 30. Of course, Panetta is a Democrat, as was President Truman, but I can assure you from personal experience, Republicans are welcome to attend the event and are generally treated humanely. And that is Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7:30. Now, on behalf of the Ruckettes and the Ruckus crew, Mike Shannon saying thanks for watching. Thanks for being here, Steve. Pleasure to have you
Thanks
back.
for having
and
me.
good night.